This is the Worldwide Whoop, and it's Thursday, July 9th. Hey Whoop! As you can clearly see, I am back from my travels abroad. I got back from London on Monday, so I've been spending the last few days recuperating and trying to get over the jet lag, which, surprisingly, has taken a heavier toll on me than I would have thought. But I've got an awful lot to share with you, so let's get started. I went to London with a group of about 27 other students from the University of Kansas, and we spent our first 2 weeks in London in little 5-person flats, which were kind of funky, but they turned out to be alright, except for the beds. The beds were awful. This was a trip of many varying degrees of bed. But the first 2 weeks in London were interesting. We went to a whole lot of museums. One of the classes we were taking was art history, so we were just all over the place. We went to the National Gallery, the National Portrait Gallery, the Tate Gallery, the Tate Modern. Basically, you name it, we went there, if it was an art museum. And it's to varying degrees of interest. The National Gallery was quite interesting. The National Portrait Gallery, so-so. The Tate Britain was pretty cool. I liked the variety of art that they had there. They had all kinds of stuff that was from all different periods and represented kind of a nice wide variety of British art. But my favorite by far was the Tate Modern Gallery, which is interesting because when I went many, many years ago to the Tate Modern, I had a less than exemplary experience. It was pretty funky. I think probably not the least of my problems was that I was 11 at the time and probably didn't have a very good grasp of modern art, and my parents have never really been much of modern art connoisseurs, so that might have been the problem. But anyway, this time, it was utterly fabulous, and I loved just about every single piece of art that I saw. I learned an awful lot about art in general, from the early days up through some of modern art, but not as much of modern art as I would have liked. But all in all, the art portion of the trip was pretty well covered and pretty darn interesting. We also hit up the theater hardcore. We went to the Globe Theater and saw a really fun production of As You Like It, probably one of the better ones that I've seen of that play. We saw Waiting for Godot, which was the first time that I'd ever seen the play, and I hadn't even read it before. I'd never had any exposure to Beckett whatsoever, but I loved it. It was fantastic, and presented a lot of really interesting concepts to me that I hadn't really thought about before. Loss, religion, purgatorial feelings, abandonment, just lots and lots and lots of heavy-handed stuff. But it was a super cool play, really interesting. And of course, we got to see Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart and Simon Callow all on the stage together, which was awesome. We also saw Hamlet, which was less than cool, even though it had Jude Law in the title role. It was basically just a Jude Law vehicle. I didn't really get a whole lot out of it, which is a shame because I love Hamlet as a play. I think it's a fantastic play. But this production was really pretty lackluster. I also went with another group of our friends within the KU group to see Billy Elliot one weekend, and that was pretty fun. The lyrics left a little something to be desired. I think it's kind of obvious that the fellow who wrote the lyrics, who also, by the way, wrote the script for the film, isn't much of a lyricist, but the rest of it was pretty interesting. I liked the production value of it. I had some friends who went a few days later and told me that they saw all 3 Billies in that production because the first one lost his voice, the second one looked like he was getting motion sickness about halfway through, and so they took him out, and then the third one finished out the show. While we were in London, we also took a couple of day trips. We went to Bath, Salisbury, and Stonehenge. It was pretty interesting. Bath, yeah, I've been to Bath before, and it didn't really hold a whole lot of significance for me. It was alright, it was pretty, but it wasn't wow. Stonehenge was pretty cool, because, I mean, it's Stonehenge, so it was kind of neat. We talked about druids a lot, and by the end of the trip we all wanted to become druids so that we could go and hang out at Stonehenge whenever we wanted. After our 2 weeks in London, we went to Haworth, home of the Bronte family, and got to walk around in the moors, which, by the way, are God's country. My goodness, they are beautiful, but they are also pretty wild. Very, very, very interesting place to go and walk around. And then we went to York for a few days. I love York. I've been there before, and it was every bit as fun as I remembered it being. We went on a ghost tour. We toured York Minster. We walked around all the shops. There are lots and lots and lots of shops in York. and it was really a very relaxing 2 days after the hustle and bustle that was London. After that, we went to the Lake District for a couple of days, and the Lake District, of course, is gorgeous, but it's something that kind of wears thin, or at least it did for me, after the first, 4 or 5 hours. We were there, all day long. We toured the Lake District on a bus ride and kept getting on and off and on and off and taking pictures of glorious, beautiful mountains and then more glorious, beautiful mountains and mirrory lakes that were all wonderful, but after a while, I'd kind of had enough of it, so I was ready to get out of there by the time that we left. And finally, after the Lake District, we hit up Scotland, which was my favorite part of the trip by far. We went to Edinburgh, which is a lovely city. Oh my goodness. Compared to London, where everybody just kind of looked at you funny and yelled at you if you were doing something wrong, and they did yell at us. People went out of their way to be rude. It was very strange and very, very unexpected. Edinburgh was just refreshing and nice. People were nice to you. They went out of their way to be nice to you. They wanted to make sure that you were enjoying the city as much as they were, which I felt like was a great, great feeling to have. Because at London, I never quite felt at home. I felt like I needed to work to fit in. But when we went to Edinburgh, bam, I was right there. I was into it. I was having a great time. I went to the Edinburgh Film Festival, which was fantastic. It was like a dream come true, basically. One of the best nights of my life. We went to Pontypool, the screening of the movie Pontypool, which is a Canadian zombie movie. It's kind of a zombie film, but not quite, by director Bruce McDonald. So the film was fantastic. Bruce McDonald was there and stayed afterwards for a Q&A, and we even got to meet him after that, outside of the theater, just hanging around, having a cigarette, and we talked to him for a little bit. He was really, really nice. And we saw Alan Cumming when we were coming into the theater, which was a bit of a shocker. He was coming out of a screening of a movie called Boogie Woogie, which he was in, and it was screening right before Pontypool. So we saw him coming out of the theater just as we were going in. While we were in Scotland, we went to the Highlands and toured up there, and the Highlands are gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. So dramatic. It's like all of the beauty of the Lake District combined with the wildness and the just kind of cragginess of the Yorkshire moors. So it's like the best of both worlds combined into this really dramatic and very historical place. Our tour guide told us all kinds of crazy stories about the Highlanders, about the Jacobite Rebellion, and Scottish fairy tales, which, by the way, Scottish fairies are kind of badass. Oh my gosh, they are rough and tumble at the very best. Then we went back to Edinburgh for a couple of days, checked out Glasgow and the Glasgow School of Art. That was a pretty neat place. It's designed by a guy named Charles Rennie Mackintosh, who, for the rest of us, is kind of like Frank Lloyd Wright, but more industrial. And then, after hanging out in Glasgow for a day, went back to Edinburgh, and then, after that, finished up the trip, went back to London, and flew home. So, in a nutshell, that's been my trip. Again, I'm really sorry, I haven't been around, but I didn't bring my computer with me because it turned out that I was going to have to pay extra if I wanted to get wireless in the room, and it was kind of funky everywhere else. It was really very touch and go, and it was extra weight that I didn't think I'd be able to handle taking it with me, so I just left it behind. I've been trying to keep up on things. It's been really hard. I haven't had a whole lot of time in the last month. It's been like class, excursion, maybe 30 minutes of internet time, and even that I only had to use for homework. So, tough. But I'm back now, and it's going to be a lot more regular from here on out, I promise. I've got nothing else lined up for a long, long time. So hopefully we'll be able to get things back on track. Now, I would include the obligatory photo montage, but unfortunately I am running out of time, so we're going to have to wait on that until next week. So for now, that is all from me. Marta, I will see you tomorrow.